Yeah, it doesn't have to be personal. A good song doesn't have to be personal. It can also be a good story. You know, like Nick Cave's great songwriter, Shane MacGowan, great songwriter. Not a lot of their songs are personal, but a lot of them are also stories. So it doesn't have to be. I think just if you have a hot human voice on there, full stop, makes it a little bit more personal. If it's a good song, then it becomes even more personal. But just a human voice, even if it's just talking or singing one or two lines, it's still a human voice, and it makes it more personal. But it just gets more personal the better the song is, I think. Well, that's the weird thing. I can trace the reason I like dance music and rock and roll is because they were my first musical loves. When I was very young, about 11 years old, there was a rock and roll revival going on in England, traditional rock and roll revival, and so I heard that music and I saw the fashion, the Teddy Boys and the brothel creepers, and I loved it. And but also there was I heard Donna Summer and Kraftwerk as well around the same time, and also glam rock. So that's I've always loved kind of disco music and rock and roll, you know, and because they are literally the first two sorts of music that made me excited. But I was 11 years old. That was weird. I think what it was, because disco had become so watered down by then, it kind of represented a lot of punk rockers. It represented, I don't know, it just didn't represent real music, and you know, and it was just kind of throwaway, and it was just light music. But disco, you know, John Lydon liked Can, you know, and you know, very rhythmic, very, you know, without, you know, Can just sounds like early disco and house music to me a lot of the time, you know. So I don't know. That was just when there's lots of things when punk happened. A lot of people thought it was like year zero, you know, and you couldn't like anything else. And what was supposed to be a movement about thinking for yourself just became another movement with a lot of rules. When punk started, the early punks, a lot of it was about dressing up and just being shocking. It wasn't very political. You know, it's only like a year or two later that it started to become political and have the rules. But when it started, it was just about music and dressing up and shocking people, which is what disco is. It's the same thing. It's about going out, dressing up. You know, it's a kind of fashion thing. So it's not that different from punk rock, really. I'm going to have punks all over the world want to kill me now for saying that. Well, I don't know. I think in 1977 in England, people were so shocked by punk. It was like a summer of hate more than a summer of love. You know, people like my parents thought it was the end of civilization. You know, everyone, it just couldn't. I've never seen. You know, it really did scare and upset people. So there wasn't much love around. It was. I had a club in London called Wrong Meeting, and I made a compilation CD to give away to the people at the club. And someone from the record company heard one of those CDs and said, "Can we put this out as a commercial release?" So that's a kind of shorter version for the compilation album I gave away. I did 300 copies with handmade artwork and signed them and gave them away. And yeah, so that's a kind of a version of that CD. Yeah, I mean, but basically it's a reflection when I had my club, the Wrong Meeting Club I mentioned earlier. That's how we used to start. We used to start like that. Start with rock and roll, you know, the R&B, rock and roll, rockabilly, post-punk, electro. So it kind of flowed. You know, it made sense. It wasn't just being eclectic just because we could. You know, we had to get from 1940s rhythm and blues to techno, and so we kind of worked out a way to do it, and that's what that reflects. That way I make even more money. Yeah. I don't Wrong Meeting. We don't do Wrong Meeting anymore. We may do it again next year, but no, not sure. And Double Gone Chapel is I do once a month on a Sunday, and that's rock and roll and country and rockabilly, and sometimes some ska as well. Yes, I've just brought myself lots of stress. it's always hard work doing a club, you know. And although they were only once a month, it's really it's quite difficult because I was doing the promotion, and with Wrong Meeting I was doing handmade posters. So I was putting a lot of work into it, you know. So yeah, it's aged me and given me